Okay, this is exercise 4.10, and the point here is to apply CVP tools to a multi-product scenario. And when you look at the assumptions for cost volume profit problems in general, it says that it's for a single product, okay, a company with one product. So what we're looking at here are 3 products, okay? Not a whole lot more, but triple anyway. So this company sells books, movies, and magazines to a wide customer base, and in a typical month, about 40% of its sales volume is from books, 40% from movies, and 20% from magazines. Okay, so what we were trying to do was figure out, well, what would the break-even be for selling these 3 things, okay? How many books, movies, and magazines would I have to sell? All right, and the assumption is that this breakdown of 40, 40, 20, that stays the same, okay, that it doesn't change. So that's a pretty big assumption. The selling price, but it's an approximation, okay, that's what it tells you. The selling price and cost information for each of these product categories is below. So they gave us the selling price and the variable cost. So what we're going to do is figure out the contribution margin for each one of these. All right, and they tell us that they've got fixed costs of $30,000. So what we're looking at is, well, how many of these do we need to sell to cover that $30,000 per month? All right? Yeah, find a weighted average contribution margin. That's what we're going to do, is find a weighted average contribution margin for the whole thing, okay? Determine how many units from each product category to sell to break even. They normally sell 3,000 books each month. Given the current sales mix, how many movies and magazines would you normally sell? If you're selling 3,000 books, how much to sell of everything else? Okay. Okay, according to the contribution margin, which product contributes the least toward covering books and more's overall fixed costs? So let's take a look at this. In the first place, you want to have a nice schedule that you prepare for yourself that looks just like this. Well, you've got the product here, then you're going to figure out your contribution margin per unit, put your weighting here, there's your sales mix, 40%, 40%, and 20%. All right, and we can calculate the weighted average contribution margin per unit. Okay, so that's our first step in all these problems. So 40% of $7 is $2.80. 40% of $6 contribution margin is $2.40, and 20% of the magazine contribution margin of $4 is 80 cents. So the total contribution margin per unit is $6. Okay, if we weighted what we're selling. So if you take if you say this is 1 unit, for example, that's what it would be. It'd be 40% of a book, 40% of a movie, and 20% of a magazine. This would sum to 100%. So now calculate the break-even point in units, then use the sales mix percentages to find the number of units of each product that's needed. Okay, so break-even in units. So if your sales units to break even would be your total fixed cost, the $30,000, divided by this weighted average contribution margin. So sales in units to break even would be 30,000 divided by $6, or 5,000 units. Okay, and if 5,000 units is the total, so that the way this breaks down then is 40% of 5,000 is 2,000 units of books, 2,000 units of movies, and 1,000 units of magazines. Okay, so just to go back over it one more time, these are the categories of products. We figured out the contribution margin per unit and then multiplied it by what share of sales mix that this is. So books and movies are 40%. So I take 40% of those contribution margins and pull it into the weighted average calculation. And then magazines are 20%. So 20% of $4 would be 80 cents. Okay, so there's our weighted average contribution margin per unit right there, the $6. We took the fixed cost, divided it by the $6 to get a 5,000 unit break even. Okay? Then you had to figure out, well, if it's 5,000 units, how many books will I sell? How many movies and how many magazines? So I'll take those 5,000 units and multiply it times the sales mix percentage. Okay. What else do we have? I think there's one more piece to this. Yeah, this is kind of a tricky part here. Normally, books comprise 40%. Oh, the last thing was what happens if books are 3,000, right? So if Books or More sells 3,000 books, you can divide the 3,000 by 0.4 to get this total sales volume. The other thing you could do is I would have 3,000 books, 3,000 videos, is it the second one? Movies, yeah, movies, and then 20% of that, 1,500 magazines. So the total sales volume would be 7,500. That's if it sells the same number of books if it does movies, okay? So, and the magazines create the smallest contribution margin per unit at $4. So it contributes the least toward covering the fixed cost. All right? Okay.